Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody stopping by very much. So I have the round 27. Yes, round 27 game between Nepomniachtchi and Wesley. So, for all of my people in the Philippines, mabuhay, magandang araw, kamusta na? Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking video, aking kaibigan. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from Russia, I will say privyet to you, kakdela, and spasibo for coming by and taking a look at my video. Anybody coming from Paris, merci beaucoup, mes amis. You know, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. All right, so we got B3, D5. So as soon as I get on the video and say, man, I haven't really seen any G3, B3s, then we see a B3. It's like they're listening to me. Like, I mean, in between games, they're like watching my videos. That's where some of my views are coming from. Nah, I'm playing. They're not watching my stuff. Anyway, but we do see the Nimzowitsch-Larsen, the classical variation. You know, whenever you play B3, you know, D5 or E5 are going to be like the strongest replies. Because, you know, basically what white is trying to do is put this bishop on this nice long diagonal. So you are just literally trying to just like blunt that bishop as much as possible. So we see bishop to B2. We got knight to F6. We see E3. Bishop comes to F5. We see knight comes to F3. We see E6, C4. We got C6. Knight comes to C3. Knight B to D7. D4. We got knight coming to E4. We see A3. We got bishop to D6, and then we do see the novelty of the game, which is bishop to D3. Now, if we go all the way back to 1992, like almost 30 years ago, we have seen this position before, and we saw bishop to E2 in that game. It's the top chop. I can fix it real quick. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I just literally just did this. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me get this fixed up. You're going to see my head be real big. This is, I literally just got done fixing this. This is whack. So, but I fixed it. I noticed it early enough. Bam, bam. All right, so we're good to go. Adjust Wesley so just a touch. All right. You guys are seeing some like behind the scenes stuff. Appreciate you guys bearing with me. Yes, good. I caught it early enough in the video. All right. So, like I said, we did see bishop to E2, you know, back in 1992. So it has been a while since this position has been seen. But after knight to D6, we see bishop to D3. We got knight takes C3, bishop takes C3, bishop takes D3, queen takes D3. Then we see queen to E7. And for me personally, because I do play D4 myself, and I'm a Catalan type guy, but this does bear a lot of similarities to like the Catalan. You know, even like Queen's Gambit Declines type stuff and semi-Slav type stuff. You know, there's a lot of this structure going on. And, you know, it's kind of like if you're going to develop the bishop here or just put it on G3. So, you know, and that's one of the things, like, as you continue to go through and you continue to work on, you know, different openings, different positions, stuff like that, you know, things, you know, that's what allows you to play different positions well when you have experience across a lot of different, you know, a lot of different types of positions and stuff like that. So we do see castles by white. We got A5 by black, E4, castles by black. We see bishop coming down to B2. Got pawn takes E4, knight takes E4. Now, the thing that is most common when you do push E4 in these positions is you do have a knight here. So usually when you take here, you take back with the knight. But we did trade the knights down. So we do see the queen taking back on E4. So we get you know, a little slight tempo on white with knight to F6. We see queen to H4. We got B5, bishop comes down to C1. So, you know, maybe on a good day, we're going to go ahead and place the bishop here and cause some real problems for this queen on this E7 square. So pawn takes C4, pawn takes C4, then we see C5. And these are really nicely timed, like, you know, pawn pushes because, you know, as you guys can see, white has a pretty nice center. It's not as relevant now because we are, you know, kind of in a middle game going towards like an in-game type situation. But, you know, you always are trying to break down, you know, whatever your opponent has going on. So we got A4 by white, rook F to C8, bishop to E3, pawn takes D4, queen takes D4, and then we do see rook A to B8. Now you want to be careful because you don't want to just be, you know, going off grabbing pawns. because you're going to be looking at bishop takes f6. Rook will take h4. You got queen taking e7, bishop taking e7. Or, sorry, bishop taking e7, bishop taking e7, knight taking h4. Bishop taking h4, and as you guys can see, you are down the exchange. So you definitely have to throw some calculation in there. So this is exactly what Wesley so did, so he didn't go for that. We got bishop to c3. We got bishop down to b4. Also, be careful. You know, you don't want to trade here and allow black a pass pawn because it's going to be a monster because his rook is already behind it. We got bishop coming to e5. We see bishop to d6, rook f to d1. Bishop takes e5, knight takes e5. Queen goes to c7. So now we kind of have like a little bit of an issue with this knight here in the middle of the board. We see queen coming to g5, queen to c5. And this is pinning the queen down because you don't want to see like a knight to d7 situation occur. Actually, no, that would just be winning an entire knight. So, I mean, maybe knight here. I don't know. And so we see queen coming to f4. Now, if we do back up here, after queen to g5, we do have the ability as black to play actually knight to e4. And these knights, like anybody who plays like really quick games online, these knights are really, really annoying because it's really hard to get away from the attacks of a knight. They're easy to calculate in the longer games, but they are really time consuming when you're playing against them, you know, in like bullet or something. So queen comes to f4, we see knight to c3. And as you guys can see, this knight is just getting really annoying. You definitely can't hang this square because you're going to be looking at a fork between the king and the queen. So just maybe something that could have got thrown. So queen comes to c5. We see queen to f4. We got rook down to b7. We got h3. You know, this is multi-purposeful. You know, we're just trying to make sure we don't have any knight g4 thing stuff coming in. We're also making sure that we have a little bit of luft here for our king. You know, we don't want to get back rank mated. So we got h6. Rook comes to d3. Rook c to b8. We see king over to h2. We got rook to b2. So it's, I mean, it's starting to heat up a little bit for black. You know, you got this rook on the 7th now. So, you know, you got some threats rolling. You got rook to f3, queen coming back to c7, you know, pinning this knight. Well, no, not really, because you do have the rook behind it. So it's not pinning. Rook comes to e1. We see rook to a2. Got queen down to g3. King comes to h7. And we do see queen to h4 by white. But we actually, it's not like a winning tactical combination, but it's an interesting tactic, and it might, you know, maybe in another type of game, maybe it might produce some type of fruit. But in this position, you actually do have knight takes f7. The point being, if you do take back here, you're going to be losing the rook. So you don't want to do that. So you're most likely going to go ahead and, you know, come down and check on g3 with the queen. The king is going to take, and then you got rook taking a4, knight taking d6. So as you guys can see, it's fairly even, but, you know, it's you know, you're kind of adding a little bit of an attack here on this pawn. So, you know, you kind of have a little bit going on. But like I said, it's still fairly even for either side. So going back to what we saw in the game, we saw queen to h4. And now we see rook b to b2. And it's getting hot. It is getting hot because, I mean, you have all this pressure now on this 7th rank by these 2 rooks. Like, what's better than 1 rook on the 7th? 2 rooks on the 7th. So, you know, we working on something. We trying to cook something, you know, for black. We got rook e to e3. We see rook over to e2. We got queen to d4. Rook takes f2. Rook takes f2. Rook takes f2. And we got c5. So, you know, we're hoping that, you know, we can try to push this pawn and make black be very defensive. But, you know, we might not have time to do that because we do see knight to d5. And then we got rook over to g3. We see rook to f4. So this queen is getting harassed. So we got queen down to b2. And then we do actually see rook to f5. But we do also, you know, you can swing the rook over here. Just, you know, hit another tempo on the queen. You know, usually when you're playing against somebody, if you can just make multiple tempos against the queen and you're not going to put yourself in danger, you know, why not? It just helps you, you know, maybe knock the queen into a less favorable square. So after rook comes to f5, we see knight down to f3. But we do have an issue on this diagonal because this rook is defended by the king only. And this is the only square that the king can defend it on. So you do have this rook pinned. So that can be an issue. We got knight back to f6. We see queen to b6. You know, white really, really wants to trade queens because this pressure on this diagonal and this rook being basically immobilized is just too much to bear. So we actually do see rook takes c5 in the game. But if you guys want to go ahead and stop the video and see what black actually has It's a pretty strong move. It goes into like a pretty strong like continuation. Go ahead and do so real quick. All right, cool. So the idea is that you want to maintain this queen on this diagonal, and you don't want to allow the ability to trade. If you do have to go into a trade, which is possible, you want to put it, you want to put it on your own terms. You want to improve your position as you're going into it, right? So if you guess queen to f4, you would be absolutely correct. Queen to f4 does kind of sidestep this trade, and it just, kind of allows the queen to continue to maintain this pin on this diagonal. But this white queen is going to kind of become very annoying. You're going to see queen to d6. White is saying, hey, man, I really want to trade you queens. You're going to block with e5, but then you're going to see queen to d2. And now, as you guys can see, it is not still possible to maintain this pin. You're going to have to trade. But like I said, you're going to be able to do it on your own terms while improving your position. Knight to e4 is going to come. You're forking both the knight and or the rook and the queen. So the queen is going to take on f4. You take back with the f pawn. Or the e pawn, and then after rook comes to g4, you have g5, and as you guys can see, this rook is literally stalemated, and h5 is going to be coming, and so you're going to be in a much worse position as black. So as you guys could see, if you did go into a trade up here, not only are you going to be running into a bad pawn, but you're not getting yourself in the best possible position after the trade. So. Like I said, we did see queen, we did see rook take c5. We see queen down to b1 with check. We see knight to king to g8. We see knight to d4. But unfortunately, now this drops a knight to h5. And, there just really isn't anything to do in the position. Like I said, this rook is pinned. This knight is adding extra pressure onto this rook. So, this is just a really crummy position for white. The knight comes down to e2, and then we see knight takes g3. And it is in this position that Jan Nepomniachtchi does resign the game. Because even when you do take back, you're still, you're pinned, and you're going to be looking at moves like this to where, you're going to have to, provide some type of, something. But then there's going to be h5 coming. You can try to go ahead and do this, but this rook is just going to this rook is just going to pretty much stay here. You're also threatening this stuff over here. And you also have the ability to really push these pawns to a touchdown. So it's looking really, really sketchy for white. So Jan Nepomniachtchi did resign that game. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting game, I think. It's the little tactics that were in there were kind of cool. And it just kind of, I think a lot of the things is when I'm showing these different games, a lot of the major difference between winning and losing a game is like trading at the right time. Like either trading at the right time or, just not going into a trade or something like that. Like every single trade is not the same. There's always going to be different things that go on when you're talking about trading. Sometimes you trade into a good situation. Sometimes you trade into a bad situation, or sometimes it doesn't matter. So you always have to kind of like, figure out, is the trade beneficial for you or not? So that is that. But for all these languages, I actually literally did it a minute ago and I did it like crazy fast. So I'm going to see how fast I can get this done. Hopefully it'll take me like 8 to 10 seconds in the future. So we will see. All right. So maayong buntag, mayad na agahan, naimbag na bigat, masancho sa kabason, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapuno dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big abukla, maraja na buntag, Maria Mainat, Maupe na aga, Kasanyangan si LUB. Assalamu alaikum, salam, and merci beaucoup to everybody. And I pretty much got them, and I did them pretty quick. I just kind of paused for a second, but next couple of videos, next couple of days, I'll just be spitting them out like nothing. And I'll be, I'm still working on some Tagalog and stuff like that. So I'm just going to keep getting continuously better at Tagalog. So, I might be having some conversations with y'all at some point, so you never know. But I appreciate everybody coming by. Maraming salamat, aking makaibigan, and, merci beaucoup, mes amis, and spasibo, and I'll see y'all next time.